Good evening, everyone, and sorry for a bit of a delay in getting started here. We did have a technical glitch, our first of the new year. Welcome, everybody, to 2025, and welcome to our first meeting of the Ottawa RASC Centre for 2025. We'd like to extend a special welcome as well to people tuning in from other RASC centers. So hope you enjoy the show. We've got some interesting stuff coming out. And if you're wondering why I'm wearing a hat, I've been told that I need an anti-reflection coating. One of my dear friends told me that, so I'll wear my biker cap. All right. So let's begin the show. I should introduce myself because I'm your new meeting chair, Paul Klauninger. I feel a little like Jon Stewart for anybody that watches the Daily Show, because I did this some years ago, and I'm back. So yes, and unfortunately Mick can't be with us today because he's I think he's still in Australia there on a family matter. So maybe he's tuning in. I don't know. If you are, Mick, hello. We're managing so far. All right. See if I can get this right. Green button, right? Yes. Oh, there we go. Okay, for those of you that are tuning in on Zoom, we'd like to let you know, we'll remind you that we are recording this webinar for posterity, and it will be available on our website afterwards. If you want to ask a question, use the Q&A. Oh. I don't have to go back to the start though, right? Okay. Yes, so use a Q&A to ask the question to the speaker. And just a reminder that the chat box function in Zoom comments can be seen by everyone. So the other one is raise your hand function is not enabled here. All right. Yeah, and we would like to start off as well by acknowledging that the trust that has been placed in us by our First Nations with their ancestral lands and skies on this land. So thank you very much. We have a good program today. I think we're all trying to recover from the holidays. I hope everybody had a good time. We're going to start off with Ottawa skies shortly. Our usual survey of what's happening in the night sky in Ottawa this month. Then we've got an interesting presentation, a joint presentation actually, with Rabarskyi and Andrea Girones on planetary imaging and image processing, which is very timely because the planets are nice and high in the sky right now. And will be for the next little while. So the opportunities are good. All we need is some clear sky. Hey, we're working on it, right? That'll be followed by a quick update from Sharon Odell on the status of the Dominion Observatory and the struggles they've had down there, trying to keep that very historic site afloat and viable. We'll then break for a bio break. Following that, after the break, we'll have Majid Naji also presenting a very interesting cooperative work that he did with a number of our members here on calculating the distance to the moon based on eclipse photos from the wonderful eclipse that we had in April. A very interesting talk there. I went through his documents there. A lot of work, a lot of calculations there, but I won't let anything out of the bag. That'll be followed by various observation reports. We haven't had too many this month, and I guess you all know the reason why. At least for those of us in the Ottawa area, the skies have been pretty dismal since the last week in November, but there have been a few exceptional nights, and we've got some observations from those times. Following that, we will have our monthly observing challenge, and we'll cap it off with just various announcements that we have from the club. All right, so without further ado, back off one slide here. We had a remarkable year in 2024. We had 118 new members. So for any of those members that happen to be present tonight, nice that you could join us, or if you're online, equally nice that you could join us. So we hope you find your time with RASC interesting. We have a lot to offer in this center, and I encourage you to take advantage of the benefits of the club and the facilities that we make available to our members. So welcome all new members. All right, Dave, do you want to borrow my hat? No. You're good? Yeah. You sure now? Oh, I'm sure. Okay. Here you go, sir.
I was the one that was giving Paul a hard time at the start tonight, and both of us are challenged with the fact that we've grown too tall for our hair. Moving on. Ottawa skies. This is a very, very busy chart, but look for this in Astronauts. This gives us the planet visibility for 2025. I'm not going to spend any time on this. Phases of the moon, having a meeting mid-month, it means you've missed half the things I'm going to be talking about. Full moon was last Monday, and that moon was known by the early indigenous tribes as the wolf moon. It's also been known as the old moon and the moon after Yule. Upcoming, we have the new moon on January the 29th. As you see, the days are getting longer, so these are the sunrise and sunsets. Mercury is really not visible. It's rising and setting with the sun. Venus is at greatest eastern elongation. You missed it, January 10th, but it's still quite visible up in the sky. And Mars was at opposition on January the 16th, which was yesterday, if we can ever see it. In any case, it's still very close to the Earth. Good time to observe Mars. Jupiter is visible in the evening sky. Saturn is visible in the early evening. By the end of the month, it'll be setting at 8 o'clock. Uranus is visible in the evening, as is Neptune. And of course, you've probably heard in the news, we have a whole line of planets visible in the evening sky. So it's a good opportunity to go out and look at them if there were no clouds. And here's my cartoon of the month. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. All right. Next up is Taras on afocal imaging of the planets. Taras, you good to go? Here you go, sir.
Thank you. Probably should correct the title. It's actually about both or three types of imaging, including direct projection and the prime focus. So just first slide was called afocal, and I'll start with it, and I will cover the others as well. But I would want to start with notion that one of the most exciting objects during the public outreach is the planets. So every time you show the planet to someone, there is excitement, shout out, oh wow, and everyone is really trying very often to take picture of that. And most of people usually have the cell phones with them. They put it against the eyepiece, and they get some images, and sometimes those are quite good images. This is myself. I took it early years when I tried to do that with a big telescope, and I was excited. Actually, with this hobby, the excitement starts at the beginning because you don't expect what you get, and whatever you get is over or above your expectations. So then I noticed, all right, so this is the planet, there is the moon, but I don't see the details. And so I learned that this is the matter of exposure. And so what is exposure? Exposure is the amount of light which you get during the time when sensor is opened to your object and reads the data from the object. And that amount of light, in case of our cell phones, is decided by the cell phone algorithm, which thinks that the background is too dark, and whatever the object is, let's make it a little bit brighter, so it overexposes it. So the key would be to have ability to control that exposure. For cell phones, there is different freeware software which allows you to do that. So next try will give you something like that, which is already more or less the image of a planet. You can see some details, And again, another level of excitement. It's there. Well, this planet that everyone is talking about, it's somewhere in the sky, some imaginable object. It's actually right there, and I can show it to anyone. So that feeds the enthusiasm. Moreover, if you get some improved results. And in this case, the result looks not bad, but it's a bit noisy, I would say. So the noise comes from different sources, but I will leave them alone. So main source, probably the electronics noise, probably the effects of seeing. So how to deal with that? There is a way of dealing with that called stacking. So essentially, you take a few pictures like this, stack it together, and that means that you use software which averages those two images, if there are two, into one, or if there is hundreds, then a little bit of every image is getting averaged to form the final image, which reduces the noise, because the property of noise, it's random. And when random is all mixed together, it has the tendency to become less noticeable. So yes, this is the afocal way of imaging, when you simply take your camera with your lens that the camera has, put it against the telescope lens, click the button, and you get the image. And I was using it first years with, not with cell phone, but back then actually, not much with cell phone, but I had improved it a step higher with one of the one-shot cameras, those which pop up the lens when you push the button, and it was Lumix, Panasonic Lumix. So I took a few images like this with that camera, and on the same note, I want to add that I wasn't using just a separate frames, as I mentioned, like two or 10 or whatever, but those cameras, they have the ability to record the video, and video is a frequency or sequence rather of frames. So it's better to have probably like 30 frames per second for 1 second, and stack them together, and you will get already much better image. And it worked more or less. However, there is still a way of improving it. So as you see, the colors are a bit iffy, the details are still not there. And main reason for that is that you're using too much of a glass between your object and your sensor. So there is your main aperture imaging aid, like either the lens of your refractor or a mirror of your reflector, and then every next step there is something else added, like your eyepiece, in this case camera lens as well, and each of them has the tendency to degrade the image. So the next step would be probably removing one of those excessive objects with glass, and it's easier to remove the eyepiece probably. To remove the camera lens. Some cameras don't allow it, so this is where DSLRs come in place. If you remove the DSLR lens, there is a way of directly attaching it to your eyepiece. In this case, the eyepiece is of 5mm focal length. And why is it so short? Because we need big magnification. Because the planets are small and in terms of their angular size, so lots of magnification is needed. It comes from your eyepiece with a shorter focal length. And it already improves the image a little bit, but there is still some issues. But I was using this setup for a while, and I want to just show you something which is needed in this case. It's this adapter called T adapter. And there's another one here, a ring, which adapts the thread on this Hyperion lens with the thread which is inside this adapter. So essentially it's M42 to whatever the thread on this lens is adapter. It's quite a cheap and easy solution. Once you get those two rings or adapters, you're ready to go, and you will get, right, so before we get to the next slide, the pros of this setup is, as I mentioned, it doesn't cost too much, probably like $20 to $30, maybe up to $50 for the good T adapter, about the same price for the thread adapter. And all you need to have is just the DSLR camera. It's quite easy setup. Camera has its own memory chip. And when you record, again, video, most likely, you're all set. Compared to the afocal way, it gives you better image quality, which is, again, step forward. The cons is that when you record the video, you have a choice of recording it either with a higher frame rate, but with compression, or a RAW format, which means the image is not compressed, it's recorded as it is, but most of these cameras will not produce the high frame rate instead. I pursued the first way with higher frame rate but compression, and compression usually means that when you get lots of data, some older cameras, some memory cards cannot handle it. It should be reduced to a reasonable amount for that device to handle. And in case of DSLRs, the compression is roughly 1 to 10, and it is lossy compression, which means that the signal or the data which you get is not exactly, what you get at the end after compression is not exactly what you got at the beginning. There will be, let's say, 90% of the actual data lost. It would look like it is still the same image, but it's not. So there is a way of dealing with it, though, which means that if we keep exposing it for longer, there will be still higher number of frames which you can stack, and the higher number of frames, the less of this lack of details or lack of signal quality will be an issue. But we'll get to there. And yes, a low frame rate in case of the uncompressed or RAW video. Extra glass still, because we didn't get rid of at least the eyepiece. Low sensor efficiency means that the probability of a photon reaching the sensor for these DSLR cameras is in a range between 30 to 60%, which means that those others, 70 to 30% of photons will be lost. They will never get the sensor, and we will not have enough of signal or data to process. So that's not good. However, again, this is example of video taken with the camera where I use so this type of imaging is called eyepiece projection. So I use this eyepiece projection setup. We'll play the video in a second, but I just want you to take a look at here and there at what seems to be like a rainbowish effect. So this is when you record the video with a compressed, as I mentioned, approach or motion JPEG. This is what it looks like. It's not too bad, but you still can see some issues with that, like higher noise. It's not too bright. Again, it was sufficient for first steps when I got into the hobby to get some results, which is this one from Florida with a better seeing. This was also made with the DSLR camera. They're acceptable, but they're not really prominent as they could be, considering even what you saw through the eyepiece. The moment when I was imaging this, when I took a look through eyepiece, I saw way much more details, and I was wondering, why is it? So there is an issue, or this issue actually pertains to a couple of reasons. Main reason is how the CMOS sensors are built. So as I mentioned, their quantum efficiency is quite low, which means it cannot get all the details or powerful enough signal. And the other issue is even more complicated, is the actual details of how each element of sensor retrieves the signal. The image, the camera, was shot as a color video. Color is something which is 100% subjectively human. There is no notion of color in nature. There is just frequencies which have specific amplitude, and that's it. But our eye has different types of sensitive cells which are sensitive to those different frequencies. So when we start imaging with a sensor which only is capable of retrieving intensity or amplitude of the signal, then we probably would lose the information about the frequency. So specifically, this is what the sensors build like. These elements are the actual sensitive elements. Each of them can be called pixel. But to get color information, what manufacturers of color sensors decided to do, they put these micro lenses on top of 3 different kinds, because 3 colors allow you to have a combination. Once combined, they would address all the visual, or most of the visual area which we can see, or visual spectrum rather. There is 3 of them, but how do you put 3 between each other such a way that they would reproduce an image? Well, it's impossible. So they came up with these patterns where red is only located at these locations. Green is actually twice as many green lenses as the red ones. And they're located at these locations and the blue ones here. So let's imagine we are trying to image Mars, which is red. When we direct the image from telescope onto sensors like this, the information or the signal about details on Mars, which we get on individual pixel, so it's going to be only this individual pixel, only this, that will get the actual signal or the actual data of one particular piece of Martian, let's say, surface. So they're sparsely spread. We don't see much. We lose actually, like as you see, 75% of them. So the same about blue. So this is 50% of coverage, and these 2 are 25 each, which means that we have only half of what we could have gotten for green, 25% for blue, and 25% for red. That's an issue because we've already lost lots of our data. Particularly, this is an example of what this process looks like. So this is original image, and this is representation of what the individual pixels saw through these patterns. So if you open that image as it is, it's black and white, and we would see different intensities for each color. But we can also say that, well, we know that this is green here, so let's put green in this area. This is red, let's put red here. So this is the same image, but just like as if we were mapping each of these images onto their appropriate locations. So this is typical Bayard image as it is in a RAW format in your cameras. We don't see it this way because camera software or external software does the interpolation, which means that it's trying to figure out what these missing pixels will be. The more powerful interpolating algorithm there is, the more likely they will give you better result. But it doesn't mean that it will be truthful result because those missing pixels, they will be made up. And it's not good. It's why is it not good? Look at the artifacts, which are a result of this made-up approach. There's one here. There is a few here along the stem. Actually, you can see the artifacts are there. And this is just, we did nothing. We didn't compress it. It's how the image is represented. So how do we... Oh, and yes, this is also my particular example of these artifacts, which I faced when imaging Jupiter. So you see the shadows from the moons. They're kind of like triangular or strange shape with sharp kind of like edges here. It's still not bad, but it's not what the actual shadow would be like. We would expect that to be round. And because of these interpolations and more or less complicated algorithms of retrieving what is not there, it gets sometimes unexpected results. So how can we deal with that? Well, there is a couple of ways. First would be reducing the size of those pixels. So they're so small that these artifacts would not show up. And what we also get rid of that Bayer mask at all. So there's actually, both of them are quite valid and they produce better results. A first approach by reducing the pixel size is realized in color planetary imaging cameras and the other in monochrome imaging cameras. So the color imaging cameras compared to DSLR, let's say this one has a pixel size of 2.4 micrometers compared to DSLR of 4.7, which is already much better improvement. This one has a pixel size of 2.9, but it doesn't have the Bayer layer at all. So it only has pixels which are sensitive to intensity. But we probably need information about frequency of what that camera is imaging. So this is where the filter wheels come in place. Right, so I forgot to mention the pros of these cameras. They're surprisingly inexpensive, in the range between $250 to $600. And you don't really need to have them, unlike for deep sky imaging, you don't need to have them cooled. This one seems to be cooled, but it's actually just ventilated, so it's still quite cheaper. You don't have to cool them down because objects, the planets, are usually quite bright, and the noise which is caused by lower brightness of the object is simply not there. They are high performance, which means that unlike the cameras like DSLR cameras, you will get much better data rate, which means that you don't have to do the compression. They actually provide you with a really high data rate, which is a raw format with no compression, and that's really big advantage. Lots of features are controlled by software, those which you probably may not even expect, is like lifetime stacking. They stack and average your images as they image, so you will get a result almost immediately. There is other very flexible way of controlling everything, including the flatness with applying the flat frame and so on, but I will not be getting into the details on that unless that's a separate topic that you want to cover. And yes, it's much better than DSLR, to be short, while there is also cons. So the cons would be they don't work by themselves. You would need a computer, and that means you would have to have the cable which goes to them, and that means you have to feed your computer also probably with power, and step by step it adds to the complexity and inconvenience, but the result is usually worth it. The disk space is also needed, and a lot. In case of this camera, which has 1920 by 1080 size of the sensor. So, and again, as I mentioned, each sensor is 2.9 micrometer in size. 40 seconds of monochrome imaging video takes 1 gigabyte. So it's quite a lot, but again, these days, hard disks are quite cheap and you can get it easily. I put the question mark because I don't know other cons. There must be there, but so far those two the only issues which I can identify, and definitely the pros are overweighing the inconvenience. So this is actually this Monday, I went to Albany, New York for the Mars occultation, and this is what the setup with the color camera was like. Right, so I forgot to mention which one to use in which case. So when you image with the color camera, you get your all image at once. Probably that's all you need. With the filter cam plus monochrome camera, you will need to do sequential imaging for each of the filters. So this way you will get information about the frequency, because frequency or wavelengths is the same. So for red, it's the frequency of red which you get. For blue, it's blue. For green, it's green. When you mix them together, you will get what the particular pixel value should be like, which is great because instead of having this pattern, we have each individual pixel representing us the image detail. And in the case of events like this, when the events evolve quite quickly, you don't have time to switch the filters. So you would probably need to use the color imaging camera. even though it has a Bayer mask, even though it may not be perfect, but for the purpose, it will be fair to use it. This is Monday picture of the occultation. This is from a bit earlier where I imaged the Mars with that camera. And this is later last year when the comet, oh, I already forgot the designation, the latest brightest comet was passing. So I tried to use the fact that this camera has a smaller pixel size, smaller or a better resolution to get some details in a comet core or coma. Now, as for monochrome camera, you probably would want to use it with filter wheel all the time if you're planning on getting color images. But the advantage is that you don't have to use the RGB filters only. You can also add infrared filter, for instance, and it expands your band of what you can image in space as such. You also might think of adding something like a Barlow lens, just because, as I mentioned, the resolution will be higher. So why not to increase your focal length, ergo resolution, to a reasonable extent? There is a limitation for that, though. It's the seeing conditions, but we'll get to talk about that a bit later. So meanwhile, I'll just quickly describe my setup. So this is the very same monochrome camera. It has IMX290 chip with 2.9 micrometer size. The chip itself, I mean, the sensor is quite small, but that means that you probably would have that just sufficient compared to the small pixel size. It will have sufficient amount of data on that chip, which wouldn't need additional magnification. So this Barlow lens is actually even optional if you want to still get a nice detailed image of the planet. Pros, so we'll get, as I mentioned, higher resolution images. The software which comes with that usually has quite sophisticated features, and you would be able to do many things, which probably Andrea will mention also as well, like this stacking and so on. While the cons, so they're actually there, and main is them that to get an image of a planet in color, you would need to go 3 to 4 times of your exposure for each for one color. And I mentioned 4 because there's also a way of imaging the luminosity itself or brightness of the image, where all the visual range is equated to like one only signal which the camera captures, probably cutting off the light pollution or whatever you add as a filter which can do that. So problem is that when you do that, your object, especially if it's an object like Jupiter, it rotates. So within few minutes, the bands, the red spot will rotate to a noticeable distance. So you would be really limited in your time for how long you can image the planet through one filter. And I found out that the timing is usually should be not larger than 20 to 25 seconds, maximum 30 seconds. There is a way of dealing with that with even longer exposures if you derotate those images or those videos later. Again, Andrea might be telling you the details of how it's done. But again, the more precise data you get at the beginning by not really trying to extend it in time, the better result you will get at the end. Each channel may need a separate flat. Why is that? Because there might be micro dust on each and every filter, which will show up in your video or on your planet surface, which is not good. So you would have to take those flats and later apply in a software which processes them. And added cost, you'll have to get the wheel, and now it gets a bit more expensive. So these are the images taken that way recently. This was 2020 Mars opposition. This is earlier this year. No, actually, this is a few years ago. This is in December, on December 20th of last year. And Venus is probably also a few years ago when it was in this phase, but I would imagine around 2020 as well. So again, RGB, 3 colors combined, will give you almost all the visual range of possible combinations of colors, and the software will take care of balancing them and so on. Now, I also figured out that 2.9 micrometer pixel size, in case when we have good condition for seeing condition, is maybe still a bit too big. So when we do have nice seeing conditions, the resolution of your image can be even higher. So I got recently a camera with 2.0 micrometer from ZWO. And it's one of the improvements. So essentially, we're talking how to make further improvements to that setup. The other improvement is so-called atmospheric dispersion corrector. We'll get back to that, but essentially what I wanted to see, what I wanted to mention is that the seeing conditions at some really selected nights get quite good in Ottawa area. You have to look for that ahead on weather prediction sites. There is on cleardarksky.com, there is a line with the seeing, and the bluer it is, the darker blue it is, the better seeing condition there will be. And such nights you can use camera with even smaller pixels because you will get more details from your image. So that was the case actually with one of my attempts to image Jupiter. I got some nice shots. And as for the atmospheric dispersion corrector, it's a bit different story. So what happens is that probably all of you, when you looked at some objects which are quite low or relatively low above the horizon, instead of bright star, you saw that it has this rainbow type of stretch, usually going vertically. And the reason for that is that the atmosphere works as a prism. If you think that we're in space and there is a layer of atmosphere around the Earth, so the change of this media from vacuum to denser air, the denser air would have its own refraction index, which will bend the light. Not only it will bend it, but it bends each of the frequencies in a different way. So the most susceptible to this, I'm not sure if this is correct, but I believe actually red would be most susceptible to bending because it has lower energy. But anyway, you will get this rainbow effect from a source, including if it's planet as well. So this is just very, very simplified when you look at it through RGB filters. But yes, they visually they will look like a rainbow image. And how do you see that? What do you do with that? There is an experiment back then, probably conducted by Newton, if I'm not mistaken, who actually realized that when the light is dispersed through the prism like this, when you take the same prism, turn it upside down, then this dispersed light will be collected into one single beam of light, which is a great idea. And this is essentially what that dispersion corrector does. It has a small prism inside, which you rotate by yourself in a direction that is needed to be under proper angle. And this is an example of image as you see that probably through the telescope when the object is quite low with the dispersion. That dispersion was noticeable in that video, which I showed you later around the top and lower part of the image. This is the same effect here. So instead of just imaging straight through your Barlow or straight on your imaging sensor, you can put something which resembles this to correct or collect this dispersion back into one single light, and this would be the result. So this image has more details because of that, because each and every of these colors have details which, if combined, produce even sharper image. You can see a little bit of how this moon is stretched here, and there's a single dot here, and so on. So this gives much better results, but there is a condition, though, that it's still, I would say that it's not worth of using it unless the object is about at least 25 degrees above the horizon. Because then, if it's lower, the seeing, which is the oscillation of air in that direction, will be so strong that this would not be of much help. So yes, this is my typical setup, which includes the focuser. I found out that particularly my telescope, which is Meade LX80, has this knob, which is really sensitive. It has a bit of a backlash, so getting things in focus are tough. There is probably a way of focusing your telescope on a bright star first, which is nearby the planet, by using Bakhtinov mask and then slewing it back to the object. But again, because of so narrow field of view, you don't probably want to move much away from the image, from your object once you're on it. And it's better just to use a proper focuser. So I added the focuser. There is an adapter needed for this focuser because it's 2" versus 1¼ So this is a 2" to 1¼ adapter. The atmospheric dispersion corrector filter wheel, and the ZWO 678 monochrome camera. Right, so this setup I would recommend for Schmidt-Casses, which, as I mentioned, don't have a precise focuser. If your Schmidt-Cass has a fine focuser, probably you won't need it. And with this, you can do the more precise focusing without really having the object move as soon as you touch the knob focuser. It adds weight to your telescope, so you don't really you have to add an extra counterweight. And if you're not set it up properly, if you don't tighten the knobs underneath, this might slip when it's looking straight up, so it's inconvenience as well. And general kind of comments. So the seeing condition probably is 60 to 70% of success for your imaging. If seeing is good, either of these three methods will give you good results. So unfortunately, seeing here very rarely, maybe I remember not more than 2 nights last year when the seeing was acceptable. So you either have to hunt for it or go to a place where the seeing is predicted to be good. But if you invest a lot in things like atmospheric dispersion corrector or fancy filter wheel or a big telescope, and the seeing is still not good, then it may not be worth it. As I mentioned, the height of the planet does matter because of thickness of air between us and the planet. So when the planet is quite low above the horizon, we'll get lots of air streaming, changing its shape, working as a lens, which constantly changes its shape. So you will get this shaky image, and this is not good. So instead, if the planet is almost like straight up, that layer of air will be much thinner, and the chance of getting better image is much higher. Yeah, I mentioned that below 25 degrees probably is just simply not worth of trying it, and at least from our latitude, you may not get satisfactory results. And all of this said, I haven't mentioned the most important part, which is the telescope itself. So the telescope does matter as well, because there is a couple of properties of the telescope which allow you to improve the image. Generally, refractors are better than reflectors in that case because they don't have secondary obstacles, so the contrast of your image eventually will be better. Generally, also the larger aperture, the better image you will get because of the factual resolution of your telescope, so or resolving power rather. So this is the formula which allows you to calculate what the resolving power will be. There are actually two of those formulas. I'm not sure what's the difference between them, but essentially it would, for our conditions, equate to something like 0.6 arcseconds for 2000 millimeters focal length of telescope. So that may be quite good under, again, condition that the seeing is good. And for comparison, so to mention about the aperture, so this is what I took again on October 2020 when the Mars was at the opposition through the observatory's 18-inch Star Master, while the same night I had my own telescope, which is 8-inch Meade. And I imaged the same object through the Meade just because of curiosity. I wanted to see what the final image will be. And you see how much, like it's the same object, same period of time, everything is the same, just two different telescopes. And you see how much more details showed up in 18-inch Dobsonian compared to 8-inch Meade, which is, I guess, not surprising. But yeah, the telescope does matter. What matters less is guiding. You probably don't really need it. If you set up properly your telescope with a good polar alignment, you might notice that the planet shifts a little bit, but it's not too bad actually, because you will get that shift across what some cameras have as a regular pattern noise. And if your image is shifted, that pattern noise again will be diminished to some extent. And yes, you're okay for as long as your object, your planet, stays in your field of view. Darkness doesn't matter as well. The picture which I showed you from Albany, New York, was under bright light on the parking lot. So again, the moon was quite bright, Mars was quite bright. Most of the planets, except for a few, they're quite bright. So it's not really critical criteria. And Batinal mask, as I mentioned, you can use it if you have a bright star nearby. But I found out that instead of wasting time for slewing to that star, slewing back, centering, and so on, it's much better to point your telescope onto, in case of Jupiter, one of its moons. They're really nice, tiny disks, and you will see when they're in focus by just gently turning your focuser. And if they are in focus, then the details on Saturn most definitely will be at their finest. Yes, I mentioned that Jupiter rotates very fast. That's why you have to be really demanding to your time, exposure time, if you use the filter wheel, because within a minute at least, up to a minute, you will see that there is already change in the positions, either of red spot or the bands. They move sometimes in opposite, not sometimes, but some of them move in the opposite directions, which adds to the shift in color. In color. Venus also, you will get a nice image of Venus, but with no details. Venus is covered with a thick layer of clouds, but that's all you will get, like a nice, shiny, bright ball with no details. However, as I mentioned, the filter wheels allows you to insert some additional filters, and one of them, UV particularly, of 850, if I'm not mistaken, nanometer frequency, will allow you to see some details in those clouds, because apparently the thickness of clouds, if passed through that filter, will reflect either stronger or weaker signal. So there will be a little bit of this contrast added to the cloud pattern, and you would be able to see it, which adds, to the satisfaction that you were able to see something invisible, but it's there. Right now, I mentioned 18-inch Dobsonian telescope of our observatory, and it's Dobsonian, which means that it's not equatorial mount. So again, within 30 seconds of imaging for each of the RGB plus L channels, there's going to be a little bit of field rotation, which is inconvenience, because then you will have to derotate it somehow. And I do that manually, which is a tedious process, but it adds to the processing time. Of course, equatorial mounts will be better, but it's difficult to find equatorial mount of 18-inch, or rather 18-inch telescope on equatorial mount. the right, when acquiring the data, when you expose the image, it's better to do a little bit of, to have a little bit underexposed image. Why? Because those fine details later on, if you want to process them, and again, Andrea will be telling you more about those algorithms, they tend to increase the contrast. So what is already almost bright will become completely bright and might actually clip over the brightness, and you will not get the details in that area. And again, for higher magnification, which are needed in this case, slightest touch, even if people walk by your setup, you will see that the image might be shaking, which is also not good. So it's a requirement to be really careful not to shake. And if you just touch the tripod with your foot, most definitely the planet will not be in your field of view anymore. But all these steps, or all this, as I mentioned, the excitement first, that's what the most valuable and what's most rewarding. It's the first results which you'll get. And I really encourage you just to try whatever way you can, whatever equipment you have, because your expectations will be exceeded. And then you'll be in for the journey, hopefully with trying to get something a little bit improved, with better. And again, the results usually get better and better. And that brings to the satisfaction. So it's not the final result that matters, but your journey, the result which you see during it, the fact that you improved, and of course, the fact that this is the mysterious planet which you've never seen before. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. We're gonna move quickly along because Taras, I'm gonna scold you after for taking after me. You know what I'm talking about. Thank you very much, though. So Andrea will where is Andrea? I know you're here. Oh, there you are. Andrea will pick up on the processing part of this topic. And without further ado, I will hand that over to you.
Okay, thank you. So yes, so I am here to talk about processing. Because this tends to be software oriented, I did little videos of me actually processing. So I can't speed up much more than my video, but let's get right into it here. Here we are, planets. So so first of all, you will end up with gigabytes and gigabytes and gigabytes of data. Use an external drive. That's my advice, or you will quickly eat up everything in your laptop. So here I go. This is my video.
Hi, I'm Andrea. I'm going to do a quick video.
No, you can't hear me. Can you hear me?
I'm gonna...
Chris, is there volume we could increase? You can hit play, maybe the volume button on the other corner.
I'm Andrea. I'm going to do a quick video here, and then I'm going to turn off the camera.
I can't control the volume, so somebody else will have to increase the volume.
I captured in December of the planet Jupiter and show you some simple techniques with a color camera. You'll see that all of my various videos are all on my SSD external drive. It's a super fast drive. It's expensive to get big data, but you only need to hold your video for a period of time. So we're going to go in here. You'll see these are all my videos of Jupiter. Fire Capture automatically gives them date and UTC timestamps, as well as which filter was used and the planet. So basically, if you have a small piece of software called an SER viewer, you can click on one of these videos, and there is my live video that I was taking of Jupiter. Nothing too special yet, but that's why we process images. Okay, so these are the videos. You will see that after I stack them, I will have a series of TIFF images, and here they are. Again, they are not very impressive, but I'll show you how I get the stacked image, and I will show you then how I'm going to process. There was a little red spot there. All right, stand by for the next piece.
Anyway, so that was me doing a video showing you that this is an SER video. And I use SER because it's a little better to process. I also use Fire Capture. It's the software that I use to do acquisition, and I can actually select a small square with the scissors tool. The smaller your image, the faster your frame rate can be, so the faster that you will have your video. So as you can see, it doesn't look like much now. And as Taras indicated, with Jupiter, you cannot do very long videos. I agree with him. I would do 30 seconds in red, green, and blue. This is a color camera that I use, so I would use for a color camera maximum 90 seconds, or you'll get smearing. Is there no way to do the volume, or should I just not, like if I have 2 more slides with video. They're hearing nothing here. On the bottom, yeah, on the very bottom of the Zoom screen, on the white line at the very bottom, at the lower right-hand corner, there's a little volume button. I don't know if that would make a difference. You don't think so? All right, well, everybody be very quiet. Or I could, but I'd be speaking over my voice, so I'd have to pick one or the other. Okay, oh, here we go. Okay, so I use AutoStacker to do my stacking. Essentially, it's, as Taras indicated, it is a series of individual frames. And so what happens is AutoStacker, you give it some parameters, and it will stack the 5% best images, 10%, 15%. So this is what I go through. Maybe I will try to talk to it. Okay.
Okay,
So-
so the next step is to take these videos.
So the
and
next
turn
step
them
is to take
into,
the, is it bothersome for me to
stacked
talk
images.
over it? It's,
Okay, so this is the interface of
Chris, why don't you mute the Zoom and I'll speak to it? Maybe that might work? If I speak here, it won't go out on the Zoom? No, I'm not. You muted the video? All right, let's see what happens. So this is the interface for AutoStacker. And one of the things I don't know if a lot of you know is that AutoStacker, you can do batch mode. So for example, if you've been shooting Jupiter all night, you can go and select 5 images of Jupiter. Whoop, what happened there? Go back. Yeah, it's not playing. All right. Just give me a second. I just got to regroup mentally here. Okay. So what happens is in AutoStacker, you load in your videos. You have an interface. I can't turn. I got to look. There is an interface on the one side where you have to select between planet and surface. Surface is what you would select if you were using the moon or the sun, but this is a planet. The first thing you do is hit that analyze button, and it will create that chart that you see in the middle. And if you can look at the chart, you'll see, and I've just lost the chart. It went back. I think actually I'm loading up images here. No, I'm not. Yeah, I can't do this. I'm so sorry. Can we pause and have our break and then come back, or do another Dominion Observatory update and I'll come back? Why don't we try after the break and just see if we can get the words going? just so you know, I have all the videos. I made them and I kept a link for them, and I can put them in the Discord as well and in the
Folks, sorry, we have had a little bit of a glitch there. We've had a couple of them tonight. We will resolve that, and we've invited Andrea back hopefully next month to complete her talk, or to give it a clean start from the beginning there. So my apologies to you, Andrea, for our technical hiccups there. And she asked me to pass on a message that if you're really hungry to find out about the processing and don't want to wait a month, because we are in prime time for planets right now, she will post her work up on the Discord, and you can access it there before next month's meeting. Okay. All right. So we have Sharon online.
Hello, can you hear me? Yes, you
It's
can hear
quiet.
me. Can you hear me now?
Okay. All right, Sharon, I'll hand it over to you then.
Okay. Good evening. On behalf of the Dominion Observatory Preservation Committee, the federal government has designated the Dominion Observatory complex of buildings as a National Heritage Site. One can view this article at the link shown here on the slide, or by Googling Dominion Observatory with the date of 15th of January 2025. This is a win for RASC Ottawa Centre. Although the designation of the observatory campus is honorary, this acclamation of heritage assists with our communications going forward with the city councillors and MPs on conserving this important historic site, such as our team's continuing goal to protect the azimuth building, prevent further light pollution, and protection of the telescope sight line to the south. Thanks to our team and all who helped with this submission, in addition to Ottawa RASC members, Natural Resources Canada, the National Trust, Heritage Ottawa, and Parks Canada, Historic Sites and Monuments Board of Canada. Please stay tuned for further updates at RASC Ottawa meetings. Thank you and have a great evening.
Apparently, we are still fighting gremlins. All right. I'm pretty sure you can all hear me. Are we good online? Yes? All right. Okay. While we're prepping for our next talk there, I'll just highlight some of the benefits of membership with our club, and we'll take it from there. So as a member of RASC Ottawa, there's a lot of benefits to be had in terms of joining our members. We have a large contingent now. I think we're pushing over 400 members, or very close to it. It gives you the chance to talk and engage with people of like mind on topics of astronomical interest. And it's certainly been my experience over the many years that I've been in this club that many people are all too willing to share their information, their knowledge, their expertise, and it can be a great help, especially if you're getting into the fine art of astrophotography, which has its challenges and can be quite a steep learning curve, both with the actual obtaining of images and the processing there. So talking to people that have already gone through that can save you a lot of heartache. But if you're just interested in astronomical concept in general, that we all like to yak about our favorite topics. So that to me is one of the big benefits there. We have a lot of expertise and a lot of friendly people. All right. In addition to the membership, the club itself has numerous benefits. We have a library managed by Estelle that contains a large number of books that are of astronomical interest. You can borrow these books. We have DVDs on the like. And we also have a telescope loan library where you can borrow a telescope and try it. The old adage, try before you buy, very applicable here. There's a lot of different types of scopes available in the market today, and it can be confusing for, especially if you're new to the game. You can get lost in the online sales pitches and such. So it's a good idea to try it. You can sign it out, give it a try in your backyard, or take it out to FLO and see if you like what you're seeing. A huge advantage there, and that comes at no cost for our club members. You can also, I should back up one, but you can also earn certificates for your observing efforts there on various different types of observing. In addition to your membership, you also get the Observer's Handbook, which is an internationally renowned publication that's been in publication for, as far as I know, at least 50 years. I think I've seen copies dating back to the early 70s. Very authoritative, written by experts in the field, and just chock full of information. Some people have told me that you can get all that stuff online, okay, but you can. But being of the old school, I like to have something on hand where I can quickly flip through information. And I find often for that type of information, I can find it quicker than a book, than searching on Google and pressing on links and wading through ads. So very valuable piece of literature that. You also get the journal, which is a bit of a higher end treatment of objects or articles of astronomical interest. And you get our monthly Astronotes created by Gordon Webster, which highlight presentations that have been given and just tidbits and facts about the club. So a lot of nice value there, and that is a monthly publication that we put out online. The journal is bi-monthly. There we go. Sorry. Also, with your membership, you have access to the Discord server, which is a meeting place online, and it's just for us. It's not like a general purpose social media site, but it's an online site where folks from the club can gather and share ideas along different topics. It's organized along different topics as well, and it's a nice way, convenient way to communicate. You also get as part of your membership, and this is a really cool one. You get eligibility to get the Astropheric Pro application. Astropheric itself is a free app, and it contains weather information, seeing information, charts, and such. The Pro edition is not free. And it's chock full of more information, but as part of your RASC membership, you're entitled to get that free of charge, which itself is a pretty good deal, because if you're buying that as a private person, it's $66 a year. So here, it's a good chunk of change compared to what the membership at the club costs. All right. So just in terms of the membership itself, a regular membership is $113 a year. As I say, the Astrospheric is half of that charge just for that application. So that's a really good deal. You also get, if you want to bring in family members, it's $107.50 plus $15 for an adult, additional adult, and $9 for youth, and youth membership for $72.40. Under 20 years old and under 25 years old if you're a student. So pretty good deal and value for the money. I certainly think so. As I say, I've been with this club for many years, and certainly haven't regretted a year of it. All right. Moving right along. Hopefully we don't have any glitches. Majid Naji is going to give a presentation on a really interesting piece of work that he conducted in conjunction with a lot of our members. He had a lot of contributing members here that supplied him data on this very interesting experiment there. So even before he gives his presentation, I congratulate him on getting all these people together and forming a really interesting talk that brings the talents of many together as one.
Hi, everyone. Thank you very much, Paul, for introducing me, and thank you all to give me this chance to share or say, as he mentioned, or team jobs with you. So, as all of you know, that we had the solar eclipse on April 8th, and that solar eclipse gave us a big opportunities to also conduct a project, a very simple project, but nice project to measure the Earth-Moon distance. So we were groups of, let's say, 4 at the beginning, but after I get a chance to talk to others, especially to RASC, thank you very much, I should appreciate it, talk to other members, and they also share their information and photos with us and with me especially, and therefore we had, or let's say we have a team of the 8. So we have the first team was Jim, so Jim Thompson. So I call all of those teams as a team. So he was in Mexico, so I used some of his data and the times. The second one was Ali Reza, my friend, he was in Grimsby in Ontario. He also did some photography and also measuring some data, especially regarding the context. Third one was Zahra, she was near Ottawa. Fourth one was Tim. Tim also was in the Belleville. Fifth one was Hossein, one of my friends, he joined us at the end, and he was in the Shelbourne. Some of the teams, were not very lucky. For example, for us, we were lucky because we were in the Sherbrooke, and it was sunny and a clear sky. But for some people, like a team like Hossein, the weather was not very good. It was cloudy, so they couldn't get a lot of photos. But still, we did our best to use their photo, and it works. The sixth one was us. We were in the Sherbrooke, and the seventh was Taras. Taras also kindly share some of his data and all of his photos, and I should say appreciate it. I should express my appreciation. Sorry, I couldn't find your photo, in the on net, so I using one of your photos just instead of your photos. And the eighth one, which I forgot to add, unfortunately, it was Ali Reza. He was in the La Partie, also near Sherbrooke. So what we try to do, we try to measure the Moon-Earth distance, and using 2 different methods. So if we back to the story, let's say something like more than 2,000 years ago, many Greek scientists tried to measure, the distances, or let's say scales in the solar system, and one of them was Hipparchus. So Hipparchus, about more than 2,000 years ago, he tried to measure Moon-Earth distance during the solar eclipse by measuring the parallax. So he came up with the idea that, okay, if I can measure the parallax on that time, during the eclipse, and if I know the distance between the 2 locations, I can measure the Moon-Earth distance. So what was his genius solution is that, okay, if in the one point, which was in the north of the, let's say, Turkey, we have a totality, and he was in the Alexandria in the Egypt, so on that part it was about 80% of totality. So he said, okay, 20% of the moon is not covered, or the sun is not covered by the moon. So it means that we have some kind of the parallax of the about 5 arc second, or 5-6 arc second. So if you have a parallax of 6 arc second, arc minute, sorry, not arc second, arc minute, and if we know the distance between the 2 points, so we can easily measure the distance. So he did exactly like that. So he was, here, and another observer were there, or let's say he knows about it. I don't know how exactly, but I think through some, some calculation, or through some kind of, collaboration maybe. So he knows that, okay, when for example, in the north of the Turkey, there's a totality. In his site in Alexandria, 80% of the sun is covered, so 20% is not covered. So we have a parallax of about 6 arc minutes. So, and he knows also the distance. So simply by knowing the distance, so by knowing the distance, he calculates the distance between moon and sun. So based on his observation or his measurements, the distance between moon and sun was about, on that time, 500,000 kilometers. So he had something like 60%, 40% error, or let's say 60% was correct. So on that time, by those, instrument and all those, maybe let's say communication, because we should mention that communication at that time was not easy. Taking time was not easy. So it was a genius job which he did. So for us also, we try to do something exactly like him. So what we did, we tried to take the photo of the sun, have the same photos of the different geographical location, but at the same time. So for example, one of our observers was in the west, so somewhere like here. So it was in Grimsby. The next one was in the Ottawa, and the other one was in the, let's say, Sherbrooke. So you see that when the west observer saw a totality, the observer in the middle saw something like 90% let's say, partial eclipse, and the other one in the Sherbrooke saw something like 85% total, let's say, partial eclipse. So by calculating, let's say, the amount of the totality, or let's say partial coverage, or let's say this distance, which I call it the so displacement, or let's say the distance between the center of moon and the center of the sun, which pronounce itself in this region, and the maximizing become in this region. By measuring this distance and divide it by the radius of the sun, because we had the radius of the sun on that day, and it was about 32 arc minute, we could easily measure the let's say parallax. We also can calculate the distance between the 2 points if we have the geographical coordination of the 2 points. So using this formula, so easily by having the distance between the two, let's say, point or observer, as well as having the parallax, we can easily measure the moon-Earth distance. So the first result is that the Sherbrooke and Grimsby. So we try to do also all those measurements in the same time. So that one is a little challenging, because sometimes we cannot have an exact, we cannot have the same photos at exact time. Usually there are some errors, or there are some, let's say, differences, time differences between two photos, which in all of them is less than 10 to 20 seconds. And it pronounced itself also in some of the errors which we have. So, for example, when at 3:18 p.m., we had the totality in Grimsby, while in the Sherbrooke we had a partial eclipse, and it was about 85%, as I mentioned. So when we measured this part of the we measured the parallax by measuring just the maximum distance between this point and this point. Oh, okay. So for sure. So sorry, I do apologize. So by measuring this distance, we can calculate easily the parallax. And therefore, we measure the parallax using the sun diameter, as I mentioned, which was about 32 arc a minute. So we found that the parallax was about 7.24 arc minute, which in radian become this number. So we have also the distance between the 2 points, which was about 658 kilometers, and therefore we measured the Earth-Moon distance, which became something like 312,000 kilometers. So as you can see, on that day, the distance between Earth and Moon was about 360,000 kilometers. So we had about 13% errors. So we have a couple of sources of errors. One of the sources of errors is, as I mentioned, those two photos are not exactly on the same time. If you could take them exactly on the same time, that would be great. So we have something like a 10 to 20 second difference between the two photos. The second thing is that we will have the best result when the sun is on the meridian, and the sun was not exactly on meridian. So that one also is another error. So the next one is the Grimsby and Cathedral. So you see that when at 3:18, when we have a totality in Grimsby, in the Kettle Road, we have something like 90%, let's say, partial solar eclipse. So when we're using all those, when we did the calculation and measured the parallax, we get the distance between sun and Earth right now bigger, something like 19,000 kilometers. So we have about 19%, 16% error. Again, I think one of the main issue which we have is the measuring the parallax and going through the very simplistic, let's say, assumption and the method. But the next one, for the next one, we had less error in the parallax because, why? Because for the two previous one, I'm using the totality, the photos and the totality. But in this one, we use the two photos in the when we have a partial eclipse, and it wasn't the same time. So one of them is belong to the Sherbrooke at 3 p.m., 3 and 1 p.m. and the 32nd, and the other one in Belleville, it was 3 and 1 second and 46. So the difference between the two photos is about 16 seconds. And we calculate also that, okay, what is this arc second and what is this in arc minute and this one in arc minute. So this let's say arc, this has something like 7.4 arc minute, and this one is about 11.8 arc minute. So after we subtract them from each other, and we get some kind of the parallax of the 4.31 arc minute. We know also, we calculate also the distance between the 2 points. And by having the distance of the 2 points and also the parallax, we measure we calculate the moon-Earth distance. And this time you see that we have much less error. And therefore, I think right now we have, we have less error because right now, we have a better measurement regarding the parallax. Yeah, this is the another data is belong to the Sherbrooke and the Shelburne. So this one also, you can see that when we don't use the totalities photo, it seems that we can have a better result. For this one also, we got something like 373,000 kilometers, the distance between Earth and Moon, and we have about 4% error. Oh, the interesting one is that we had the two data. One of them is belong to the Jim. Jim was in the Mexico, very far from us, and the other data is belong to the Sherbrooke. So, for example, at 3:19 p.m. Of the Sherbrooke time, or let's say East Canada time, which equal to 1:20 of the p.m. of the Mexico time. So in Mexico, the solar eclipse was going to be finished. So it was going to be near the C4. While in the Sherbrooke, we were going to be near C2. I did a mistake here. So we are going to be near the totality. So when we measure the parallax, we got a parallax of 29.8 degree, 29.8 arc minute. So you can see that there's a big parallax between Mexico and the Sherbrooke. But when we calculate the distance, we got a huge distance. The difference between us and the calculated distance and the real distance is about 25% different. So we have 25% difference. The main thing I think is that because of the calculating of, because of the error which we have in calculating of, or assumption, because see, the two locations has the two different latitude, and the difference between the two latitudes is very big. It's about 20 degrees. So when the both observers are not in the same, let's say, line, same latitude line, we will have more error, and the error would be bigger and bigger when the difference between the two latitudes is become bigger. So if we are going to do some kind of the calculation, we should consider other factors, especially the difference between the two latitudes, which I didn't do. I just went with a very simple calculation. The next one also, I'm using another photo of him because at 3:27 we had a totality in Sherbrooke, while at Mexico the solar eclipse was going to be finished. It was near the C4. The parallax which I measured is about 31 arc minutes, and when we calculate the distance, we have something like 22% error. So, okay. So this is the first method. The second method which we can use to calculate the Sun-Earth distance is that that one is more newer and it's not based on the Hipparchus method. Is that we can measure or record the contact times at two different points. So if the two person at two geographical location measure the contact time, for example, C1 or C2 or C3 or C4, and after calculate or measure the delta t, I mean the difference time between the contact time at two different geographical locations, and if they know the distance between each other, they can calculate the Earth-Moon distance. Knowing the let's say sidereal period or the let's say angular velocity of Earth and the Moon, we should know those things, and we can calculate it in the first. So we should go to some small mathematical jobs, but for example, for Sherbrooke and the Grimsby, for example, the T2 or C2, because here are using T2 instead of C2. The second contact happened at Sherbrooke at 3:27:41, and for the Grimsby that time was about 3:18. So there was a delta t, or the time difference, of about 9 minutes, 9.35 minutes between the two locations. So by having that delta t and by having the distance between the two locations, we can calculate the Moon-Earth distance. The distance which I got is about 16,000 kilometers, which give us something like 12% errors. I'm using another data, the data of the Grimsby and the Cotticoke and the TRAS data. So, for example, at the point B, let's say in the TRAS, TRAS or the Cotticoke, when the totality happened, it was 3:27, while in the Grimsby, that time was 3:18. So the difference time between the 2 points, I mean, for the C2 is 9.5 minutes, and we know the distance between the two locations, so we calculate the Moon-Earth distance. It gives us the error of about 15%. And I will discuss about it why it's become very big. So we're using the two other data, Sherbrooke and Lapartie. Sherbrooke and Lapartie are more close to each other, something less than about 100 kilometers, 100 and something kilometers, and the time difference between the T2 is about 0.66 minutes, something like 41 seconds. So the 41 second is the time difference between the C2s at the two locations. We also have the distance between the two points. So when we use that, the distance and also that delta t, we found that the distance between the Moon-Earth distance, something like 343, let's say 100 kilometers. 343,000 kilometers give us something like 4% errors. So why the error right now has become less? It's very simple, because when we have a bigger delta t, we have more there's a complexity regarding the rotation of Moon and Earth, because in all those calculations which I did, I assumed that Moon is moving or rotating around the, let's say, Earth exactly in the same plane as the Moon-Earth plane. One is not exactly on the same plane. The second thing is that if we have a big differences between the latitude of the 2 points, also we have to add some correction, which I didn't do those things. But for these 2 points, since they have a very similar latitude, so as you can see, the latitude are very close to each other, and since the delta t is very small, because so the Moon will not have to have some kind of the, let's say, 3D kind of the motion, just 2D, the error would be much smaller, something like 4%. Okay, so this is the summary of what I did till now. I have lots of data, thanks to all the friends and the people who helped me. I didn't have time to process all of them. I didn't have time to go to the, let's say, second order approximation, because most of the measurement which I did and most of the calculation which I did is based on the first order approximation. I mean that ignoring some of the details. We can add those details later because it needs a little more time and more processes. But something which shows, and I try to, or let's say we try to have some collaboration, have some shared data, and by using those shared data, following some simple method which could be done by anyone, even especially students, to calculate the moon-Earth distance. Here I should also express my special thanks, to all the friends and all the teammates which helped me to have all these data, and as well as sharing the data, these photos, and also do all the encouragement. Thank you very much, and I'm here for any questions if you have. Questions? Yes, or online? For the next eclipse, for sure. The first thing is that time. Oh, for sure. Okay, for sure. The first one would be time. Okay, the question is that, okay, if we are going to repeat this experiment or this collaboration for the next solar eclipse, what I would do. So the first one would be the timing. Try to have its photos exactly at the same time. Because right now we have some issues regarding couldn't get the exact photo at the same time. So there's some differences between the two times, between the two photos. The second thing is that more preparation. Maybe it's better to talk with the other people, share the plan, what we are going to do exactly, what we should do exactly, see if the others also have some, let's say, ideas to share and to support. The third thing is that data. Even right now, I have lots of photos and data, and I didn't get a chance to, let's say, analyze or compile all of them. And I needed some help. I asked a couple of friends, okay, do you have time to help me? And as you know, everyone right now is busy. It's not very, because we have to talk, we have to calculate, we have to do those things. So we didn't have also, a time to do all those things. So for the next one, maybe we should talk ahead of time, at least 6 months, 1 year ahead of time. So, we could have a better collaboration and could share some of the data together and maybe split the job between each other. Super. Thank you. For sure.
Started out by telling us about Hipparchus.
Yeah.
Hipparchus was essentially looking at two localities,
yeah,
broadly along the same line of longitude. You pointed out that in your experiment with your supporters, the difference in the latitude was what introduced all kinds of errors. So here's my question. If you could be transported back to meet Hipparchus, you take no material with you except for your mathematical knowledge, could you help Hipparchus, who's doing, in fact, the same experiment, but at 90 degrees to where you were doing it?
Yeah.
Could you help him improve his error?
Oh, that is very tough. I think the most error which he has, it was time, measuring the time. And because synchronization, especially at that time, it was not something easy. I think they were not exactly synchronized. For example, how we are. So that is the first one, the time. The second thing which maybe we could help him is that how he exactly measured parallax. For example, when we said 80% totality, because on that time, for sure, they didn't have a camera. So I think they should have done some methods. Maybe they did some kind of the projection of the sun on the paper. And I don't think so on that time they easily also had paper, because paper, came after something like 60 AD or 600 after Jesus, 500, 600. On that time, they have something like I think height or something like that. So also projection and the recording also something which maybe could help him on that time. So timing maybe, I'm not sure, but projection and measurement maybe.
That and a good computer, right?
Yeah. And the second thing also is that they're measuring the distance between the two locations, because that one also I think was not very easy, because his measurement was based on the Earth radius or Earth diameter. So on that time, Greeks measured the Earth diameter by a couple of methods. The simplest one also against using sun, and the sun is no shadow. And we don't know which value he has exactly regarding the Earth diameter. And the second thing is that for sure he didn't know, he didn't have any clue about the geographical coordination. Maybe latitude, but for sure not longitude, because latitude is not very tough to measure, but longitude, how he's going to measure the longitude on that time. So maybe we should help him also regarding measuring the distance between the 2 points. Yeah.
Well, thank you, Majid.
Thank you.
That was wonderful.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you.
All right. Very detailed piece of work there. The references. All right. So we do have a few observations under very limited sky conditions. Our first one is with from Jim.
Let's see, so this is the, that's the
Yep.
green light, right?
That's the laser, yeah.
Okay. All right. Hi, everybody. So I've been interested I've been interested in studying the movement of solar prominences and how they change over time. And there seems to be quite a variety of plasma movement in the next solar animation that I'm about to show you. And this animation was taken a while back in September 13th of last year using the Lunt 60 millimeter H alpha scope. I chose a series of stacked images taken from 10% of the best 1,000 frames. And I took that every 30 seconds for 35 minutes. And it really shouldn't be that. I'm surprised that it's going that fast, but nevertheless, the seeing was very excellent on that day. The surface brightness of the sun was very consistent throughout. And that doesn't always occur for me. So one example of plasma movement is coronal loops located on the right side. So here you see coronal loops. Yeah, this is actually going a lot faster than it should be going, and I don't know why. Seems like this is a night for you know. Gremlins? Yeah, gremlins. There's gremlins going on here. So on the right side of the image, coronal loops, and you also see. You should be able to see. Yeah, I guess you can see. There's actually arcs forming over here. And like the movement of plasma, which begins at 2 foot points, 2 foot points on the photosphere. And this often occurs above active regions of strong magnetic activity on the sun. Now, according to one source, Earth and Planetary Sciences, typically 1 foot point of these loops is in the penumbra around the dark core of a sunspot. And in a sunspot group, especially when you have 2 sunspots, you would expect that the other foot point would be in the dark core of the other sunspot, but instead it's found in the plage region, which is a region of opposite magnetic polarity in the vicinity of the other sunspot. Plage from the word beach in French is seen in a positive image as the lighter, brighter surface areas of high magnetic activity, which in this series of inverted colorized images would be the darker areas that you see on the solar surface. Coronal loops have been found on both active and quiet regions of the solar surface. And they form in a wide variety of sizes from approximately 600 to 600,000 miles in length. They have a wide variety of temperatures along their lengths, and they radiate at different wavelengths. So, okay, I'm going to see if we can see this. If you see on the right side, this animation is really too fast. It shouldn't be that fast. But if you look very quickly, you're going to see coronal loops on the right side. In the middle, which would be right over here, plasma can move horizontally across magnetic field lines, and plasma could also move in opposite directions along the prominent structure due to finely scaled magnetic fields. And these horizontal movements of plasma, the phenomena of this is called counter-streaming. And on the left side, which would be here, we see plasma of greater density suspended vertically through the direction of magnetic field lines. Sorry for the fast. This shouldn't really be that fast, and that's unfortunate. But nevertheless, there it is. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jim. Our next observations are from Paul Klauninger. Thanks, Paul. Sorry. All right. I'm going to try to, believe it or not, make this quick. We've had a lot of moonless night, or a lot of cloudy nights in the last 6 weeks for sure. It's been, in terms of doing deep sky stuff in our neck of the woods, it's been pretty harsh. It's been pretty scanty. But there's a silver lining. We have had a few exceptionally clear nights, and of course they happen to be on nights where the moon was almost full. Now, a lot of observers and astronomers curse the moon because it just basically washes out everything, almost everything. We've seen that some good planetary imaging. We've talked a lot about planetary imaging, and there's a reason for that. We're in a lucky time in terms of planets. Where we've got two of the brightest planets, Mars and Jupiter, basically high in the sky. And why is that? Because it's wintertime. And in wintertime, the ecliptic plane, along the path of which planets and the moon and the sun follow, basically, is tilted up high at nighttime. So when the planets are in that part of their orbit, that brings them to that part of the ecliptic in our wintertime at our latitude. We get to see them at really high elevations. And Taras was making this point too about the elevations. That's super critical, especially in our part of the world, because here we're subjected to copious doses of the jet stream. The jet stream can really mess up your seeing in a serious way. Excuse me. But the planets right now are in a beautiful position. I mean, we're talking about 60 to 70 degree elevations over the last little while, elevations above the ground. That's exceptional, because that puts us through a lot less air than when you're trying to see something at 25 or 30 degrees, where the seeing will just mess you up totally. So even though the deep sky opportunities have been few and far between, it doesn't rule out taking the time and having a good look at the planets and the moon. The moon is, as I say, it's cursed by some, but there's no other body in the solar system that is going to offer you such detail with even a small telescope. The amount of detail that you can see and study on the moon is magnificent. And if you've got a moderate sized telescope, even like a 6-inch Newtonian or something like that, you can get right down into the valleys and the mountains and the deep craters. And the magnificent thing about the moon is it changes from night to night. You can look at the same feature on 20 different nights and you'll see it on slightly different angles of illumination, and the shadows and the contrast that gives you shows other detail as well. It's just a magnificent body, and it happens to be the closest one to us, which is why even a small telescope will reveal a huge amount of detail. As you see with the planets, they're small. We're talking about, you know, less than an arc minute across. Even Mars, which was just at its closest approach to Earth, was maxed out at 15 arc seconds. That's pretty tiny, even through a big scope. So the moon is there. We can't do anything about it. So we should take advantage of it. Whether you've been doing this for years, or whether you're, especially when you're new to it, the moon is such a great topic or such a great object to look at, for many of those reasons. For those of you new to the game, though, I would advise that if you've got a favorite eyepiece or something like that, get yourself some neutral density filters, because the moon, unlike everything else other than the sun, of course, is very bright. It won't harm your eyes, but it can make any long duration observations uncomfortable because it is very bright. All right. So to that end, what have we got? Well, I've had a few nights of as I say, imaging the planets. As I say, since late November, it's been pretty terrible, but you got to pick your nights as they come. And so I've had a few opportunities to look at Mars as it's grown from back in November from just 10 arc seconds to just recently when it was 6 days away from its closest approach to Earth. This is an apohelic opposition that Mars had, which means that when it came to opposition, it also happened to be near the furthest part of it, the most distant part of its orbit from the sun. So unlike some of the oppositions that we've had in the last 10 years or more, this is the maximum size that Mars reached was pretty small. And to top it off, especially in the last little while, what I've been trying to image it is, it's probably the most boring side of Mars that continually faces us. Mars's day is very similar to ours, it's a little bit longer. So if you're looking at it around the same time every night, you're seeing the same face of Mars. You've got to wait a few hours or jump out a few hours earlier to see different features of the planet, or wait a few weeks. But it is at its maximum size now, so at this point in time, it will be decreasing. So it's the time to do it. You can see up at the top, I've tried different filters. The three central images are RGB images, in other words, full color, as Terrace was talking about. The one at the top right was taken with something called a Mars filter, which actually filters out green wavelengths and basically passes more of the red and the blue, which gives you different contrasts and different things to see. You can see actually just on the, you can use the laser pointer, you can see on the edge here and down in the polar regions there, you can see hints of that. These were taken on the same night. You can see hints of it, but especially on this edge, that to me, I believe that was just some of the haze clouds, the thin clouds that do appear periodically in the Martian atmosphere. You got a bit of stuff going on there as well that picks up a little bit in both, but a bit more prominently with the Mars filter. So filters, I'm not going to go into a lot of detail. Jim Thompson and I are planning to get into a bit more detail, hopefully next month, about the use of certain filters for doing this type of imaging and for doing deep sky stuff. So I'll save that for next month. Venus, as already mentioned, it's close to us. It's twice the size of Mars there in terms of how we see it from Earth. You see, this was just taken a few days ago, 25 arc seconds across, but virtually no detail. You need some filters, again, I won't get into a lot of detail, but some filters will eke out a little bit of detail, but it's pretty sparse. All right. Hello. The primo target, other than Saturn, which is a beautiful target, but right now is not in that same part of the sky where it gives us those high elevations in the middle of the night. It's moved further on. Jupiter rules. Jupiter is the king, and it's beautiful. It's when you get a clear night with Jupiter, it's amazing what you can see. The red spot, you can see shadow transits of the moon. You can see banding, multiple layers of banding in the atmosphere, again, depending on the size of the aperture that you're using. And if you're into imaging there, you can experiment with different things. This was all, whoops, let me go back. Back, I say. There we go. I was experimenting just a few nights ago with infrared imaging. I keep leaning on the wrong button, sorry. There we go. Let's try that again. I was hoping for the laser. Experimenting with different types of filters. Again, an RGB image here, which brings out a lot of detail on the red spot and the bands and such. But interestingly, the two other filters that I used were in the near infrared, and it picks up different levels of details in different parts of the planet. You can see different details are emphasized because you're now looking at infrared, which we don't see visually, but it's there. And a special filter, a methane band filter, also in the near infrared, picks up methane lines from Jupiter, and you can see the red spot is quite vivid in that particular passband of methane. So there's always something to learn. There's always something to learn, and it's out there for us to explore. On good nights, you, especially with Jupiter, you do get the red spot, you get transits of the moon and shadows across the planet. So Jupiter's going to be high in the sky for a good while yet. It's very bright. I encourage you to go out and have a look. And as I say, it's not really affected by the presence of moonlight there. They're bright enough to stand on their own. Definitely worth it. All right. This next one I want to show you, Tara showed you a pretty nice video of image. I want to show you the opposite. This is what I call god-awful seeing. The acronym is GAS. So if you've got gas, this is not the night to be standing out in the cold trying to image or observe Jupiter, because all you're going to see is a blobby mess like that. And this is, unfortunately, as I say, much more typical of what we have in our part of the world. Our part of the world is not known for its quality of atmosphere for planetary observations, but we do get those special nights where it does cooperate, things come together, and those are the ones we like to cherry pick. And Andrea and Taras, you know what I'm talking about. Those are the nights we want to get out there and shoot gigabytes of data that you can analyze and play with after and get some really pretty amazing results. All right. My other object, the moon, as I say, which many curse, is still one of my favorite objects to see, because, as I say, I've been looking at this thing for decades, and I never get tired of it. It's always different, and I'm always still learning about it. So we had 3 exceptional nights in December, back-to-back nights, the 12th, the 13th, and the 14th, and especially the 14th. At least in my part of the universe, the seeing was exceptional. It was very still, lots of detail, and but other few nights in that time frame and in later December allowed me to grab some images of some really interesting parts of the moon, 3 of which I'm going to show you here. So this is the Apennines region, the eastern shore of Mare Imbrium. It's a fascinating region with 3 different mountain ranges here. I'll show you that one first, and I'll show you a feature here on the western shores of Oceanus Polaris, which is the ocean of storms, including features that are difficult to see easily because they lie near the limb of the moon. And so anything near the limb of the moon can be a challenge. That's why I'm also showing you, I'll save that one for the last, which is a bit of a flyover of the South Lunar Pole. And that one I was really thrilled to get. I'll show you why. So this is the first one. As I say, this is the eastern shore of Mare Imbrium, and you can see there's an amazing level of detail here. There's 3 mountain ranges here, the Apennines and the Caucasus and the Alps. Also, this, if you look, you can't really see it too well on this unless you zoom in, but there's a little streaky line there. That's where Apollo 15 landed, and you can actually make the rill out that they landed near. So rather cool. But as I say, if you're looking at the moon, for those of you again new to this, or even those that are seasoned observers, when the moon is not full, when it's got a terminator line through it, and when it's quarter full or so, the detail is stunning along the terminator, and it will change if you're observing for a number of hours in the course of a night. You can even detect changes in the shadows in the course of that one session, because the shadow is gradually moving in one direction or another, and that will reveal or hide different details and bring them out. It's really quite fascinating. This next one is a nice one I got again on one of those clear nights where the seeing was pretty stable. This is a favorite one that I like to go to. This is the crater Aristarchus. It's one of the brightest craters on the surface of the moon. It's relatively young as lunar craters go. It is 460 million years old, but it is very bright, and it's about 70 kilometers or 50. No, I think it's about 50 kilometers across. And the neat part about it is it has Schroeder's Valley nearby here, which is a collapsed lava tube. This is 160 kilometers in length. It meanders across a raised plateau, which is itself an interesting structure. And it's up to 10 kilometers wide and peters down to about half a kilometer as it winds down here. As I say, this is a remnant of a collapsed lava tube, and it's one of the finest rills that you can see on the moon. This other feature, I was originally just looking at this, but I noticed that I also bagged that guy, which I've actually never seen very clearly before until this night. This is Mons Rumker, and it's difficult to see because it lies near the rim of the moon. The thing that makes it interesting is it's what we call a volcanic megadome. The thing itself is it's only about 700 meters or so of elevation above the surrounding, excuse me, above the surrounding smooth mare, but it's 70 kilometers across, and it bespeaks of a time when the moon was still volcanically active. So lots of detail on this, and you can see the contrast is very smooth on the mare there. You can see a good level of small craters getting down to close to the limits of the imaging of my instrument there. So that was a nice catch. Yes, sir. Sure. Yes. I don't know if is this functional? Do you know? Okay. Sorry.
Minor correction.
There we go.
Schroeder's Valley is not a collapsed lava tube. It's way too big. It's way too wide. It's actually an eroded valley. And it was an eroded valley, eroded, of course, by flowing lava. But it was never covered.
Oh, okay. Then it disagrees with some of the stuff I've read about it. Thank you. I'll do a little research on that myself, because I'm fascinated because I've always liked this particular feature. All right. Moving along. So I showed you a really gassy picture of Jupiter. This is the opposite. This was seen on the night of December the 14th. You can see there is a bit of jitter there, but even at this very high resolution, you can make out a lot of fine detail. And this is just raw video. Those spots are just, you know, motes on the filter that get corrected with flat fields afterwards. But so I just thought I'd show you the raw stuff that was actually seen coming down directly from the camera there. And when I saw this, the detail, it says, okay, this is a night I'm going to catch. I think I burned 70 gigs of data on this thing, but yeah, it was worthwhile. It's I'll show you in a moment here. I got a shot out of this that I've been trying to get for a long period of time. This is from the other night. This is a bit of a flyover of that southern polar region, made of it's a mosaic of 3 different images there. And I just wanted to get you a feel for. You saw how smooth the ocean of storms was. The highlands are completely opposite. They've been battered to high heaven over billions of years, very rough. And the thing that makes this, there's a couple of things that makes the southern polar region interesting. Other than the challenge of trying to actually see things in that southern pole. The foreshortening here is really harsh. If you're trying to see things near the South Pole, you've got to have very special conditions to check them out. As it happens, on the 14th of December, the conditions were exceptional. The moon, I won't go again into a lot of details about its orbit and stuff, but suffice to say, the moon, like the planets, when it's in a near full phase like that at this time of the year, is high in the sky. The moon elevation here, I believe on this night, maxed out at 72 degrees elevation, which for our part of the world, for this type of object, is very nice to have. The air was quite stable, and not only that, the libration of the moon, and you've heard me talk about this before, which is the tilt induced by as a result of the moon's orbit being tilted to our own. It was such that it was almost near maximum, exposing its southern portion to us here on Earth. And on top of that, the moon was almost exactly, it was within 1,700 kilometers of the closest approach that it could make to Earth. So everything came together on the 14th. Sky was clear, the air was stable, the latitude or the altitude was amazing, the libration was near maximum. It was a very satisfying night. As a result, I got a picture that I've been dying to get, I've been trying to get, even a view of this region for a long time, because it's really difficult to do. I'll show you a bit of a close-up here and I'll show you what I mean. So this view is right near the southern limb of the moon, and for the first time I found where the lunar South Pole actually is. That's really, I searched for images, Earth-based images of this region, and I come up with close calls, but I don't know, those parameters were just ideal. You can see the crater Shackleton. This is a really super interesting region because we're talking about putting people down in this region in the next few years. The Shackleton is especially interesting because, again, you can see the South Pole is basically on its rim. That crater has an elevation to it, and then it's also got a deep floor. The rim around that crater is actually in sunlight almost completely all the time. And its floor is permanently shadowed region where the sun don't shine at all. Which means that anything like frozen ices and water, which we believe is present in these permanently shadowed regions of the pole, that's a super valuable resource for future exploration. If we want to go there, if we want to build a habitat, if we want to colonize the moon, any of those things, we need resources. We can't just haul it all up from Earth. It's just too prohibitively expensive. We've got to go where it is. And so it just being able to see this was a thrill. And actually seeing some of these mountains, these are mountains, these are rim mountains, part of the South Polar Aitken Basin on the far side of the moon, which is one of the largest impact features in the solar system. You can't see it obviously from Earth because it is on the far side, but some of the mountains that rim it are amongst the highest in the moon. And given that libration that we saw, you could actually make this out. And this was only visible like this near the time when the moon is full. Even when you get those other factors cooperating, the libration and stuff, this area is usually shadowed. This is only 9 hours away from the full moon phase. So a lot of that terrain, which which is normally shadowed in here, was exposed, including Shackleton and the South Pole. So it gave me a chance to catch that image, which to me is like almost like flying over it, getting a view of the mountains and a potentially of our next place where we're going to put human boots on the moon. Stand by for that. It's coming, and it's in the next couple of years, hopefully. Thank you. And finally, Richard, are you with us?
I'm with you. Can you hear me? Hello, can you hear me?
Okay. All right. Richard's going to show us his observations, and then he's going to dive into the challenge objects, and then we'll wrap it up. Go ahead, Richard.
Okay, so the challenge objects for this last month were the constellation Jopan. And since I had tried to show it from the Southern Hemisphere point of view, I've actually gone back and taken one of my pictures from a holiday in the Caribbean about 6 years ago now. So the interesting thing about traveling is that you see the constellations, you see the sky from a different point of view, and what may look familiar is all in a different orientation. So in the Caribbean, actually, this appeared to be on its side, but I have just rotated it a little bit more, another 90 degrees, and you're seeing it how it would be appearing from the Southern Hemisphere. Of course, it is also known here as the constellation Orion, but it's very weird to see it with the sword of Orion pointing upwards. So the Aboriginal people of Australia regarded this as quite a different picture. They saw it as three men in a boat. The three stars of the belt of Orion are the three brothers who are fishing in a canoe. The points, the bow and the stern of the canoe are the very brightest stars at opposite corners. And the Orion Nebula was the forbidden fish that they had just caught. And they were sent up into the sky forever because they caught the forbidden fish. Next one, please. Can we have the next slide, please? And there is the forbidden fish, Messier 42. This is a picture that I took as practically the first light for a new Astro camera that I got, and I'm very, very pleased with the results. It gives a lovely range of brightness and color. This is a combination of, I think it was about 50 5-second exposures, and then about 15 30-second exposures. And then the clouds came back in. But anyway, it worked out pretty well. I can see both the trapezium, the four bright stars in the core of the nebula, and the very faint wispy details on the outer edge, including the little blue nebula to the left, the running man nebula, because the silhouette there looks like a running man. Next one, please. Now, the next challenge object was the Horsehead Nebula, and I showed you a picture that was taken by Jacques Lebrec many years ago, professional astronomer. I still haven't met it. I didn't get much chance. As Paul noted, there's been a lot of cloudy nights on the moonless nights, so I tried taking this picture on a night when there was quite a bit of moonlight, and it's such a faint red nebula that it doesn't come through the light pollution and the moonlight. So I still have to keep trying on this one. I was fairly happy with how well the colors showed up, but you can see there's a lot of noise in this, and I need a lot more exposure time to get this much better. Anyway, found the Horsehead. Next one, please. And then I was also trying for some planet pictures. I didn't get the Witch Head Nebula. That requires a very dark moonless night. But I did manage to get a few planets, mostly on the 12th of December, Neptune and Saturn, Mars a few days later on the 5th of January. But if you look at the next picture, the 11th of January, not too long ago now, was a wonderful night for planetary photography. I started out about 6:15 in the evening to get Venus. All of this taken from my backyard in Ottawa. So I've got a very restricted area of the sky that I can image from, but I managed to get all of the planets that were visible in the evening and the moon as well. And I put together this mosaic to show, again, what we were heard earlier, that all of those planets are really very, very small compared to the moon. Jupiter is about the size of a large crater. Venus and Mars and Saturn are all sort of like medium-sized crater size. Uranus and Neptune, tiny little things. So these are all with an 8-inch Schmidt-Cassegrain telescope with a 2x Barlow, my planetary camera, and you can see the relative sizes. Now, this does not show the relative brightness of these objects. The moon, of course, is very, very bright, so is Venus. So you have to use an extremely short exposure for those objects, whereas Uranus and Neptune are extremely dim, so you have to use a fairly long exposure. And it just shows the different capabilities. And I did also try and process these more or less with the same processing techniques, so you can see how much detail comes out in a comparative way as well. So that was my images for this last month. Next one, please. We did have some other people taking pictures of the, sorry, I need the next slide of the gold stars. So on the Discord server, we had lots of nice pictures of the planets and some new people coming up trying to get started on planetary photography. And quite a number of nice shots of Mars. And Andrea had some interesting pictures of Venus with different filters. Tony Jarrett got a nice picture of the Horsehead and the Flame in hydrogen alpha. He's still working on that one, as I am too. So we're hoping for some more pictures like that in the future. Next one, please. So coming up for this month, the rest of January and into February, the constellation for this month is just down and to the left of Orion. If you follow the line of the belt stars in Orion, you'll come across the brightest star in the sky, Sirius, and that's in the constellation of Canis Major, the big dog. Now, I'm showing this picture also to highlight a new website that I found. The website is on the photo credit right there. This is from, oh dear, I'm forgetting the acronym. It's NOIRL Lab from the National Science Foundation in the States. They have an actual web page which shows all 88 constellations, the classic constellations, and they have these photographic images with the lines drawn in. So it's a great, great resource for identifying the constellations. Next one, please. So within Canis Major, the big dog, there's also some interesting objects to see. So for the level 1 challenge, I'd like you to have a look and see if you can see the colors of stars. In the head of the big dog, there are a couple of stars which are distinctly different. Sirius itself is of the brightest star, it's white, and it will sometimes flash different colors, but those are just atmospheric effects from the Earth. It's really a very white color of star. Whereas Delta Canis Major at the nose of the dog is more orange colored. Gamma Canis Major at the top of the head of the dog is more blue-white. That's a kind of subtle distinction. It's very difficult to see. And then if you get out your binoculars or a small telescope, you can find a very red star W Canis Major. I've marked it on this map. It's a very dim star. It's only about magnitude 6, so you will need a telescope or binoculars to have a look at it. But it's very interesting to see one of these dark red stars. They really do show up quite nicely in a telescope. I'm hoping to get some pictures of this, but that's the challenge for level 1. For the level 2 challenge, you will also need binoculars or a small telescope. It's right down at the bottom of the screen right now. It's just a bit south from Sirius, and it's a very interesting cluster of stars, Messier number 41. And the nice interesting thing about this, if you look at it with binoculars or take a picture of it, you will also see that this cluster has quite a variety of colors of stars in it too. For the level 4 challenge, a very faint but very interesting shape of nebula. It's the Thor's helmet, NGC 2359, and it's up at the top left there in this image. So if you follow the 2 stars that form the back of the head of the dog and continue about a bit farther than the same distance, you'll find Thor's helmet. I've never taken a picture of this, so that's going to be a challenge for me too, to see if I can catch this. All of these objects are fairly far in the south, just above the horizon, so you will need a good southern horizon, and they should be around the middle of the night in a good position to get images or take or look at these objects. Next, please. So there's your observing challenges for this month. See if you can see Canis Major. Nice constellation, very easy to spot with the bright star, but it's also got a shape that really does look a bit like a dog. Level 2, the colored stars. Level 3, Messier 41, also known as the Little Beehive Cluster. And level 4, Thor's helmet. For the solar system challenge this month, Mars is at opposition right now. So it's high in the sky at midnight. Great placement, as big as it's going to get this year. So try and have a look at Mars. We've already had a very interesting occurrence with Mars. On the 13th, it went behind the moon. And I was very interested to see that a couple of people, despite the cloudy night, managed to catch a few glimpses of Mars going in and coming out from behind the moon. Okay, I think that's all for me. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Richard. All right, just to wrap things up, Estelle, I know you're here. You are still here, are you? There you are. Can't see you in the dark there. For those interested to check out the library, she'll be around for a bit. And her pick of the month is The Universe and Beyond by Terence and Susan Dickinson. Announcements and upcoming events. We're going to do, oh, Andrea, did you want to talk to this? This is your slide.
I put a picture of the sun since we haven't seen it in so long. I don't know who put announcements at the end here. So just a quick call, just because we have our council doesn't mean we don't need volunteers. Specifically, we actually are looking for a treasurer again because Marie was posted in a different location. Now, she may return, and this person who volunteers to do treasurer would then either be able to continue helping or would have Marie help them. All this to say is that if you are good with books and good with numbers, we offer training, and obviously when Marie comes back, she can be a helper. So please let me know. By the way, I'm Andrea Girones. I'm the vice president of the RASC group now in Ottawa. And I say that because I have a new email now, vice president, no hyphen, no space, at ottawarasc.ca. So feel free to email me if you want to volunteer as a treasurer. We're looking just generally to expand the base of volunteers. If you know something about social media and want to help us with the Facebook page and the Instagram page, we're looking to maybe have a summer social event where we're not always in a theater, where we can actually mingle and interact with people. Astronomy Day is coming May 3rd. It's a great time to bring your own telescope, meet other people. It's super fun. And some other upcoming events. There is a FLOW members only star party on the 25th. There'll be a go, no go. Again, if you're a new member, you can sign up for the FLOW mailing list and information. You can get it from me. You can get it from Rick, who is our FLOW director. The next meeting is pretty soon, February, and I'll do videos then. And we do have the dates almost confirmed for star parties. They will likely commence May 30th, so stand by for that. Okay, thank you. I'll move this forward.
Thank you, Andrea. All right, I think I'm going to speed things along because we are running a little over. Andrea mentioned the star party at Fred Lossing Observatory. For those of you that are not aware of this, that is our observing site out near Almont, in the middle of Kintail property. So we have 3 very nice telescopes available for use, again, by our members. You can get trained on those, and when you've done your training, that's part of your membership, is that you'll have access to these scopes for visual as well as imaging. Mentioned the star party, so I'm just going to whisk through that. Our next one, as Andrea mentioned, is January the 25th. Club information. Rick Scholes is our FLO director. He's the boss man for that site. Estelle is our Stanmont book librarian. Peter Shute is managing the Ted Bean equipment loan library, the telescopes that I mentioned. Unfortunately, we don't have anyone to do our coffee and snacks vending that we used to have. So that is open. Anybody that's interested in running a small business there. And RASC memberships info, you can contact Art Fraser for that. All right. Tonight we had 53 folks here and 52 on Zoom for 105. So pretty good turnout there. And I wanted to thank all the people that spent a lot of time doing their imaging, preparing their preparations, and dealing with our technical glitches. I thank you much for that. Any comments that you have about the meeting, any suggestions, and please, I welcome suggestions that you may have to talk about something of astronomical interest. Just fire me off an email at meetingchair@ottawarasc.ca, and I shall I'll get to talk to you about that. All right, last one, post-meeting entertainment at Liam McGuire's. For those interested in catching an ale or a coffee and chatting, we usually get about a dozen or so people that go out there down on Saint Laurent. I'm going to call an end to the meeting now because I know that their kitchen closes at 11. So if you've got food in mind, get out of here. All right, next meeting is Friday, February the 7th. Same time, same place. And a reminder as you leave, the rest of the museum is closed. Please do not wander into any of the displays or anything. I hope you have a good month. Hope we have some clear skies, and we'll see you all next month. Thank you very much.